but this is, thank you, John. But this is my first eco business, and that's got some interesting challenges. Just in terms of my background, for the last 10 years particularly, I've been working with my company called Can Do Child, so which is all about actually, and it's actually relevant to Party Without Plastic. So it's actually working with families and children and schools to nurture a can-do mindset and life skills through screen-free play, so away from the screen. And I've actually written and published 3 books, have published 3 books as well, hence why I was nodding about writing books and getting them published and using them as a tool, and a big plug for Jill's new book as well, which is amazing. And I've worked internationally on the international stage with a lot of sort of early years educators and so on, and you know, that's been going really, really well. But I'd sort of reached the point in the business where I was sort of starting to think, you know, what's the sort of next step? What am I going to do? And I sort of decided to take a little bit of time out, really, to sort of reflect on that. And there were 3 things in particular which influenced my decision to start Party Without Plastic. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about those. So there's the first one. That is my son. That's Dylan, who was 17 2 weeks ago. Can't believe it, but was. And this is what he's all about, well, not all about, but this is what he's been doing for the last few years, which is championing hedgehogs, and hedgehogs particularly in the UK, and doing what he can to turn around the absolutely dramatic decline in hedgehog numbers. So they've gone from around 30 million in the 1950s to less than 1 million, probably around about 500,000 now in the UK, which is an absolutely shocking statistic. And he's a bit of a star in his own right, but one of the things he regularly reminds me of is that the problem that hedgehogs are suffering with at the moment, and the decline and everything else, and biodiversity loss, is actually a microcosm of what is happening in the planet generally, in terms of sort of what's happening, you know, with climate change, biodiversity loss as well. So that's the one thing, and that's quite a big thing in my life. The second one is the party supplies industry. So looking at all the years that I've had working with children and families and schools and so on, and thinking about the number of parties that I have not only held for Dylan, but also gone to as a parent, and thinking about the huge volumes of single-use products. I mean, not all plastic, but just single-use generally, but plastic particularly, you know, the party bags are the kind of worst offenders in many ways, because, you know, frankly, the kids just get it, go to find the cake, eat it, and everything else kind of gets binned. I'm praising it, but that is generally what tends to happen. And I sort of looked at what was happening in the party supplies industry, because there's quite a lot of movement around you know, a lot of words that are being used around biodegradable and compostable and so on and so forth, which is encouraging, but there is still a massive way to go. So that was the second thing. And the third thing, which Jill has already mentioned, is about small and micro business. So I met Jill, as she mentioned, many years ago when I was supporting Tony Robinson and Tina Bowden from Scarborough to launch and get off the ground what was originally called Enterprise Rockers, but then became known as Microbiz Matters, which is basically an amazing community of micro businesses, small and micro businesses, helping each other to make things better. And they have a number of campaigns, things like Pay in 30 days, which is still carrying on. The legacy of what they set up was and is absolutely amazing. And, you know, we know that over 95% of businesses in the UK and who form the backbone of the economy are small and micro businesses. And that's very important to me, and always has been. So putting those 3 things together, hedgehogs, party supplies and small and micro business, you kind of think, and wanting to sort of leave a legacy, and thinking about what am I doing that is going to help my son and his generation and generations to follow better look after the planet? And when I asked that question, my response to that was a simple 2-word response, which was not enough. I'm just not doing enough, basically. And so I set about looking at trying to be, I suppose, part of the solution as opposed to being part of the problem. And that's how Party Without Plastic came about. And of course, that makes it sound really easy. Yep, got the idea, bingo, let's go do it. And for anyone who runs their own business, you will know how wonderful a business plan is, and also how it's very much a living document. And the fact of the matter is that we have really had our challenges in terms of getting this up off the ground. And at the moment, it isn't live. It is going live very, very soon, in the next sort of couple of weeks or so. Most of the challenges have been around IT and the IT infrastructure. Part of what I'm trying to do is build in scalability for that, and thinking of the future in terms of future development. And it's been, it has been quite challenging. But also, one of the things that we're looking at is, as I mentioned, is about how we are solving a problem. And that's really good business practice, right? It's like, well, okay, what's the problem that you're solving? It's something I often ask people who sort of talk to me about, starting a business. So this is the sort of scale of the problem. I'm not going to talk through all of these now, but you get a feel for the scale of the problem in terms of the party supplies industry. And they are some very, very shocking statistics there in terms of children's birthday parties, in terms of single-use plastics and so on. And yes, there's some really good stuff coming through now in terms of legislation. It's not enough, but it's a good start. But I want to focus for this talk just around the 2 bottom ones in particular, which is around confusion about terminology, i.e., what do we actually mean by the words biodegradable and compostable? What's the sort of consumer knowledge there? And I did a very small sort of Twitter poll as part of the sort of research, and I got some, good few hundred sort of responses from it. And one of the questions I asked was, how confident are you about the difference between the word biodegradable and compostable? So, just what's your level of confidence in that? And over 75% of people who responded basically said they were either not very or not at all confident in what those terms actually meant. So that was something to really sort of, consider. And in the party industry, if you're familiar with it at all, when you're celebrations, I don't particularly endorse balloons. It's not something that we sell on the marketplace because of the impact on wildlife. But if we just park that for a moment, there's a lot of movement saying, oh, we now sell natural latex balloons, and these are biodegradable. And of course, people go, oh, it's natural latex, that's fine. And of course, what I've learned through this sort of process is that actually the minute you start to add compounds, chemicals, pigments, so anything that adds colour, patterns, or improves the brittleness. So natural latex can be quite brittle. So actually often additional sort of compounds and plasticizers are added to it to make the material less brittle. And the minute you start to do that, it stops being all those things around, compostable and biodegradable. And of course, no one mentions that. So that's been quite a big issue. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in a minute. The other thing is about convenience. At the end of the day, we are all incredibly busy people, but we love to celebrate. Everyone loves to celebrate, right? It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't have to be birthdays. It could be having a summer party or Christmas or whatever it is. And we're all really busy, and convenience is really, really important. But if you want to go plastic free, what people were saying to me was that actually they need to go to lots and lots of different places to get all the different elements of kind of putting a party together. And that took time. It also cost quite a lot of money in terms of postage as well, so having to pay 4, 5, 6 different volumes of postage as well. So convenience has been like a really big thing. So what I had to do was try and find something which addressed all these issues. So how are we part of the solution? The first thing is about sourcing genuinely plastic-free party products, and that does sort of link to what I'm talking about in terms of understanding the terminology as well. But it's not been that easy, because now I understand why people are saying actually it's really difficult to find completely plastic-free party products, from everything, as I say, decorations, tableware, drinkware, gift wrap, etc., and genuinely plastic free. And I'll give you a really good example of this. I went to a small business who I really liked their products. They were doing fantastic little product, and it was absolutely perfect for party bags. It was a little bit different, not just putting a book in and a notebook, that sort of thing, something a little bit different. But I noticed on there that on some of the variants of the product that she had, though, you know, there's little googly eyes, these little plastic googly eyes, and I thought, well, I won't assume they're plastic, because although they look it, they might not be. So I went to her and I said, look, don't mind me asking, but I'm really interested in these products and it'll be absolutely great on the marketplace. But you know, those ones there, they've got googly eyes. And she said, yeah. So everything's plastic free apart from those googly eyes. And I'm like, right, okay. So we're not going to compromise on this, basically, and we don't accept plastic of any kind, recycled or otherwise, and that includes bioplastics, which I'll talk about in a minute. So basically, I just said, well, look, I'd love to have them, but actually, unless you can find an alternative to those, then we can't have them. And she's like, oh, well, they're only tiny, and I went, no. Basically it's you know, 100% plastic free. So it hasn't been an easy journey, actually, you know, sourcing products, but we've got hundreds and hundreds actually coming online very soon, which is amazing. But coming back to the thing about transparency and clarity on terminology, I wanted the marketplace to be a place where consumers could feel confident in terms of what they were buying, you know, what we meant by compostable and so on. So actually, you know, when I did a search and I looked into a particular material and I put that into Google and I said, is this material biodegradable? Is this material compostable? And I would get a load of responses from Google, which basically said, yes, it is absolutely biodegradable, compostable. And then underneath, I'd get a whole load of responses that were, no, absolutely not. And this is why. And I'm thinking, how does the average consumer even navigate through this and understand that, you know, whether something is biodegradable or compostable, even if we understand what that actually means? So I want to take all that hard work out of that for the consumer, and that's what we try and do. And we publish everything as well, so everything's published online in terms of the materials that we accept and the materials that we don't, and the reasons why. And I'd like to give an example of this, which is something called polyethylene terephthalate, which is otherwise known as PET. Now, this is a clear, strong, lightweight, 100% recyclable plastic, often labeled as fully recyclable. And that sounds really great, right? So you think, okay, that sounds really good. It's 100% recyclable and so on, which it does on the face of it sound really good, until you understand that PET is a polymer. And I'm not going to get massively technical here, because I don't have a background in this stuff. It's just what I've learned. But for a polymer to be categorized as biodegradable, 60 to 70% of the material has to degrade within 6 months. That's basically how it works. And PET, there's no way it can meet that criteria, because it takes several hundred years to biodegrade. Where you will find PET, so if you look at buying children's games, for example, you'll often see it's wrapped in this kind of plastic stuff. It says 100% recyclable. That is almost guaranteed to be PET. And you also get a lot of it in food and drink and so on. So we decided not to accept PET products or products which contained PET materials onto the marketplace. You know, these are really quite difficult decisions that we have to make. And the same goes with bioplastics. So it's not that I disagree with, because I don't. I wholeheartedly agree with actually recycling plastics, turning them into other stuff, and having longevity around that rather than just single use. Of course, that's really good. But at the end of the day, those products are still plastics, and they will still have an end life, and they will still, in some form or other, end up in landfill or in the ocean. So we had to make some really difficult decisions. And, you know, currently about half of the bioplastics in the bioplastics marketplace are not biodegradable at all. And understanding which are and which aren't, frankly, is an absolute minefield. So I don't have, and this is complete honesty here, I do not have an environmental science background at all. And I'm learning, I'm studying with the IEMA, and I called out for help, basically, because I thought I'm never going to be able to navigate this on my own. And I'm very fortunate to have linked up with two universities, and the UEA in particular, in terms of their environmental sciences department. Still very early days in terms of what we're doing, but they are helping me basically navigate this and helping us make decisions about, you know, where we sort of draw the line, basically, in terms of what we accept and what we don't. And I think that's particularly important in terms of an eco business. I've already mentioned how important UK small businesses are to us, and bringing those on board on good terms is really, really important as well. Now, you might have heard of a number of platforms, marketplaces that offer opportunities for small businesses. A couple are Etsy, not on the high street, and there are quite a few more. But unfortunately, not all of these offer good terms. And in fact, one of them in particular recently has caused a number of businesses to actually go out of business. They decided to hold on to 75% of their funds for around about 45 days. And it meant that the money couldn't come through to those businesses to enable them to buy more materials, to deliver on their orders. Massive problem. So what we did is went out and talked to small businesses and tried to work out what terms would work for them and what terms would work for us. And actually, you know, you just have a conversation about it, right? So that's what we were able to do. So we've come up with basically a system where everyone gets paid weekly, and the terms that we've got, your people are really happy with, and we're happy with as well, because ultimately we are a business, and everyone kind of understands that. But it's a good situation. So good terms for small businesses is really, really important. There's two other things very quickly that I want to cover around influencing and education. And I think influencing particularly is a really big thing. One of the things we want to try and do is influence all the different aspects of our supply chain in terms of reducing that footprint, the plastic footprint of the party supplies industry. You know, we're already doing that, actually. So there was another small business, for example, who I really loved their products, but they were putting plastic buttons on them. And I said to her, if you can go away and source something different for me, an alternative to those plastic buttons, I would love to have your products on the marketplace. And she was like, okay. And about 3 weeks later, she came back to me and basically said, I was so taken in everything that you said, and it really fits with my values, and actually I've gone away and I've been able to source these recycled, formaldehyde-free, sustainable wooden buttons, and they look amazing. And she said, actually they look better than the original sort of plastic buttons. Can I come on your marketplace now, Mum? Yeah, absolutely. So that's just a tiny example of how we can start to sort of influence parts of our supply chain. And of course, not surprisingly, because of my background in sort of education and obviously working with children, families and schools and so on, I do want to keep that education element running into the business as well. So we are working with Earth Warriors Global. They're not actually on, I don't know why they're not on there, but they should be. So working with Earth Warriors Global, who have an absolutely amazing, unique climate change and sustainability primary school curriculum that they sort of deliver, and it's really exciting kind of working with them as well. In terms of our vision and values and action, I think Bridget, when she was putting this together, was talking about we're very sort of very values driven, which we are, and I'm not going to repeat everything that's basically up here, but we are very much a values driven company, and you can read for yourself what it says there, but I just want to pick up on a couple of the values in particular. Ultimately, we can all have values, but it's how we put those values in action that actually really counts. And environmental stewardship is like obviously, unsurprisingly, absolutely massive for us. Working out, everything in terms of sort of the life cycle. So we use a life cycle assessment process, from sort of considering the environmental impacts associated with things like the raw materials that had to be pulled together to make the product, through to manufacturing, usefulness, and then of course recycling and disposal. So that's huge as well. It's not just about being plastic free, it's the other, weighing up everything else sort of as well. Of course, inspiration for change, innovation and creativity, and the innovation and creativity particularly comes from small businesses. They are far more agile, far more able to respond to look at using alternative materials. I mean, when it launches, I would love you just to go and have a look at the range of products and materials that small businesses, they're all based in the UK, from right over from Scotland to Cornwall, literally, and I'm based in Wales, and we've got a good sprinkling of Welsh businesses as well. I mean, it is absolutely extraordinary what the small businesses are doing. We want to be purposeful as well, so we've decided to support the Earth Restoration Service, and we do that through the Work for Good initiative as well. In terms of future plans, I know it sounds a bit weird to be talking about future plans before we've even sort of launched, but I like to think big. Basically, we've obviously got to get this off the ground in next few weeks. But we do have one particular thing that I'm really happy to sort of share with you, which is the plan for 2024 to launch one of, if not the first, plastic-free, pre-loved plastic-free marketplaces, basically. So that's very much focused on the, the circular economy, looking at trying to keep products in use for as long as possible, and sort of regenerating, reducing them, going to landfill. And the fact of the matter is, particularly with things like children's parties, one year it might be unicorns, the next year it might be construction, the next year it might be Paddington Bear. And that's kind of how things are, right? You have themes and things go around and come around. And what I wanted to be able to do was to really, bring those back in, those products back in. So we're going to, 2024, we're going to launch the pre-loved plastic-free marketplace for party essentials as well. So that's a bit of a confidential thing there, but I'm happy to share it here in terms of our future plans as well. In terms of sort of, so I'm nearly there. Hopefully I'm on time. Let me just make sure. There we go. So one of the things I'm often asked is, what are your top tips for starting a business? I mean, I've probably started 7 or 8 businesses over the 20 odd years that I've been working in business. And actually, the top tips that I give are really super relevant, whether it is a business or an eco business, to be perfectly honest. And the first one is to find a niche and do it well. We could very, very easily go into gifting, for example. So someone said to me the other day, oh, you're going to, so we can buy gifts and party gifts and birthday gifts. No, absolutely not. Saturated market, very difficult to get yourself noticed without sort of, you know, really kind of having something super special. And actually we've already got our niche, and we've already got a really clear target of what we want to do in terms of the party supplies industry and so on. So it's about finding a niche and doing that particular niche very well. Unsurprisingly, point 2 is about collaboration, and not being afraid to help, to ask for help, not being too arrogant as well. I certainly was when I was in my 20s, when I was starting off, and I was doomed to fail, to be honest. And I did. My first business failed fairly catastrophically, mainly because I didn't ask for help because I didn't think I needed it. But I'm not like that now. And I go and ask for help whenever. We cannot be experts in everything, and particularly in an eco business, you know, trying to navigate through all this stuff around terminology and materials. I could not have done that without support, absolutely not. So collaboration, not being afraid to ask for help is really important. And ultimately, do what you are passionate about. If you love what you're doing, people will absolutely see that passion, and that will draw people in as well, and draw in customers too. So that's like a really big thing. So what I'd like to do now, just to finish off, is I'm just going to stop sharing momentarily, and then I'm going to restart, because I know I've got to hang on, just give me half a tick. There we go. Because I know in order to do this, I need to share my screen in a slightly different way. So I'm going to show you a share the sound. There we go. I'm hoping this will work. Jill is on. She's going to unmute herself just in case, because this video won't work without sound, basically. So I'm hoping this will work. So it's a very short video, all about Party Without Plastic. So sit back and enjoy a video.
We all love a celebration. Birthdays, weddings, Hanukkah, Eid, hen nights, Christmas, summer, and well, just because. While our celebrations may last a few hours, their impact on our earth could last for decades. For us, high provenance means if we can't verify how and where a product has been made, it doesn't make it onto the marketplace.
Great party and there's no plastic anywhere.
This is the best party bag I've ever had. Everything is eco-friendly. I love that everything is reusable or compostable.
These balloons are brilliant and they don't pop. Great party and the sweets are delicious.
Make your celebration unique and memorable for all the right reasons.
So, oh, there we go. So that was great fun, basically, filming that. Just got a group of local children together, and everything, the voiceovers that you heard, they are just words that they came up with. We didn't script it at all. There were a few things where we said, right, go and get the party food now, just have some fun. And it was actually one of the little girls' birthday. It was actually her birthday on the day that we filmed, which was amazing. So it's just a very natural, fun birthday party. And yeah, all the words are their own words, basically, which is really exciting. And finally, this is a book that I have thoroughly enjoyed reading, as well as Jill's book, called Is It Really Green? And it's been very helpful for me in terms of sort of working through the quagmire of a terminology. But something really struck out for me in terms of a quote in this book, and it kind of brings together everything that we're trying to do at Party Without Plastic. And, you know, my son, when he discovered what was happening with hedgehogs when he was 13, felt really overwhelmed. And, you know, if we think about everything that's going on in the world, climate change and biodiversity loss and plastics and everything else, it really can feel overwhelming. It can feel overwhelming for us as adults, and I know we've just talked about that earlier in terms of, you know, feeling enormous overwhelm for young people and children as well. And you can't solve everything, and you certainly can't do that all at once. And one of the things that she says is you can't solve everything, so just, you know, do something, basically pick something, pick one thing. And that links into what we're talking about in terms of that niche market. So you can't solve everything, so pick something and be kind, be brave, be bold, because ultimately the planet needs you. And that's sort of, yeah, that's where I want to finish really with it. So that's what we're trying to do, revolutionizing how we celebrate one event at a time. Thank you for listening.